Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon News Update for December 18th, 2024. First off today, I'm going to give a quick update about a couple of articles that I featured recently. In the past month, the Deseret News has published the following two articles. The first one, with the headline, Enrollment Growth at Latter-day Saint Universities Rebuts Narrative About Young Adults Losing Faith, which is summed up as nearly 1 million students enrolled in colleges and universities and seminaries and institutes sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 2024. The increased enrollment runs counter to the narrative that young people are turning away from the faith. And the second article's headline was More Missionaries Serving, More People Joining the Church, and says the reality is more people are coming to the Church of Jesus Christ, they leave off the Latter-day Saints in this sentence, than we've seen in decades. Both articles rave about the extensive growth the church is experiencing, which seemed off to me considering the dismal census figures coming out in many countries where the church is required to report accurate membership numbers. The articles also don't account for the numerous wards and stakes in key Mormon areas that are combining or completely closing. Let's listen to Ryan T. Cragen and Jesse M. Smith, authors of Goodbye Religion, The Causes and Consequences of Secularization, share their opinions on articles such as these in this 2-minute clip from Mormon Stories.
I work at a university. Given some of my current other responsibilities, I'm the president of my faculty senate. I'm very aware of how enrollment works. It's not that hard to change your enrollment numbers by just reducing your standards. So you can always accept more people and suddenly, boom, you've got an uptick in enrollment. They're talking about like BYU, Idaho, and the numbers have gone up. Well, sure, if you're just accepting more students because you dropped your criteria, like that's a pretty easy way to bump your enrollment. And then to turn around and be like, see, people are really interested in our universities. I'm like, oh, come on. This is just a shell game. The other thing that they do mention in there, as though it's a good thing, they're piloting, not necessarily there, right, but in their Ensign College, which is mostly online, they're piloting 3-year bachelor's degrees. And somehow they got this approved by the accrediting body, which I'm kind of appalled by. But basically, they're saying you can get a bachelor's degree in 3 years. They dropped the number of credit hours that are required from 120 down to 90. And they're cutting out all electives, minimizing the gen ed, doing all sorts of super sketchy stuff. Effectively, they're offering worse degrees and probably for not as qualified individuals. And then they're turning around and saying, see, this illustrates that they're not losing their faith. I'm not convinced for even a second that that's actually what's going on.
Even the numbers aside, one of the things I didn't like, or that I think is a cause for confusion, is the assumption that you're either in institutional religion or you have no spiritual life whatsoever. They conflate a bunch of things. They conflate practice, right, in a specific institution, in this case in the Mormon church, and faith and spirituality in general, right? So that if a person disinterested or grows disinterested in the Mormon church, that they've lost any sense of wanting to cultivate a spiritual life in any way. That was a distinction, or rather a lack of a distinction, that bothered me, setting aside all the problems with the way that the numbers are being manipulated here.
Yeah, and they also talk a lot about online education. They're enrolling tons of people, but if you pay close attention to that article, they don't talk about retention or graduation rates. You know, all the big rating companies that do this, Newsweek or whatever, they care a lot more about retention and graduation rates than they do about enrollment. They're not telling us how many are graduating or retaining from year to year. I think those numbers actually matter a lot more. That story sounded like propaganda to me, to be honest.
And on that note, let's go to the Mormon Shrivel subreddit for a post that says, Dear friends, we wanted to share that as of today, December 15th, 2024, the East Bay Single Adult Ward has been officially dissolved by the Oakland Stake Presidency. While we no longer hold meetings or Sunday services at the Overlook building, this change marks a new chapter for all of us. Over the next 2 weeks, your individual records will be transferred to your geographic wards. Rest assured, this community remains strong, and we want to stay connected. We'll periodically gather for events and activities, so keep an eye on this page for updates. Thank you for being such a special part of this ward family. We love you. Warm regards, the bishop and spouses. Now let's go to a newsletter written by Tad Walsh of the Deseret News. A group of Latter-day Saint theological thinkers has been assembled for a new series of short books on themes in the Doctrine and Covenants. For example, the profound and prolific theological scholar Terrell Givens is the author of Agency Themes in the Doctrine and Covenants. The series emanates from BYU's Neal A. Maxwell Institute for Religious Scholarship, which rounded up a similar group in 2020 for 10 short volumes about the Book of Mormon. That astonishing lineup included Givens, Adam Miller, Rosalind Franson Welch, David Holland, and James Falconer. Each volume in that series provided a brief theological introduction to a book of the Book of Mormon. The new series is divided into themes instead. Givens wrote a 91-page volume on agency themes in the Doctrine and Covenants. Deseret Books' Janice Johnson wrote 127 pages on Revelation themes in the Doctrine and Covenants. The concept is to help readers seeking a life of faith in the modern world by combining scholarly insight with practical application, according to the Maxwell Institute. The other authors in the D&C themes lineup are the Maxwell Institute's Philip Barlow, BYU Academic Vice President Justin Collings, BYU's Amy Easton and Amy Harris, and BYU Hawaii's Mason Kamana Allred. The books are available from Deseret Book and Amazon for $10.39 to $12.99, or on Kindle for $12.34. Personally, early on in my faith crisis, I could not stand listening to Terrell Givens. I felt like he was talking about a church that never existed for me, one of compassion and understanding instead of black and white thinking. I haven't read anything or listened to anything of his in years. I do wonder if I could stomach it now. Now let's learn about Naomi Harriet Ward Randall. From Wikipedia, she was born October 5th, 1908, and passed away May 17th, 2001. She was a Latter-day Saint songwriter, author, and a leader in the primary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In 1957, Randall wrote the lyrics to I Am a Child of God, an LDS church hymn that was originally written as a song for children. Randall served as a member of the General Board of the Primary Association for 27 years. As a member of the board, she was asked to write a song for children that would teach them the LDS church beliefs on the nature of a child's relationship with God. The result was I Am a Child of God, which has been published in over 90 languages. Randall also wrote the lyrics to When Faith Endures, which is hymn number 128 in the LDS Church hymnal. Randall was a frequent contributor to the Children's Friend and was the chair of the primary committee that created the CTR ring. From 1970 to 1974, Randall was the first counselor to Laverne W. Parmley in the general presidency of the primary. On October 13, 1998, Randall was awarded a presidential citation by Brigham Young University President Merrill J. Bateman for her lifelong service to the children of the LDS Church. Naomi Harriet Ward was born in North Ogden, Utah. She was married to Earl A. Randall and was the mother of one child. Naomi Randall died due to advanced age in La Mesa, California. Now that we know a little bit about Naomi Randall, let's see what Patheos.com says she was doing in 1970. 1970, a church committee headed by Naomi W. Randall, created to counter the feminist movement building in the 60s, My Body, My Choice, recommended that the shield be incorporated into official church material. ERA green, 3 letters, and a replacement for the ERA logo that was starting to spread. Head of the committee, Naomi W. Randall recommended that the church incorporate some kind of badge of belief into the doctrinal teachings for the boys and girls of the church. Some speculate the modern CTR symbol was influenced by this. I heard this for the first time this morning while I was doing my run and listening to Mormon stories. While it is speculation, I do not doubt that the modern-day CTR ring, green background, 3 letters, absolutely could have been in response to the ERA. Yesterday, I talked about how volunteer Mormon seminary teachers often pay out of their own pocket for supplies for their classrooms. Now let's go to the Ex-Mormon subreddit for some more talk about Mormons and their money. It says, when I was a true believing Mormon kid in the 90s in Michigan, I got a taste of how cheap Mormons can be when compensating people, especially other Mormons, for work done. I was probably 14 or 15 when I got a new scroll saw for Christmas one year. I was a somewhat crafty kid and my cousin had one, with which he made cool shadow box style art. I asked for and was given a craftsman saw just like his. I spent the new year practicing on scrapwood and I became proficient at its use. My TBM mom was in the Relief Society presidency in our ward. The following Christmas, she helped plan a craft night for the women in the ward. One of the projects was a wooden jigsaw puzzle nativity scene, which the Relief Society members could paint and take home to display. Since I had the scroll saw, Mom signed me up to cut the pieces. Picture about 12 inches by 16 inches with a puzzle piece for each figure in the nativity. About 15 pieces, including a large border for the stable roof and walls. About 20 women signed up for their own personal nativity scene. 20 puzzles times 15 pieces worked out to be 50 plus hours of work on the scroll saw, plus hand sanding each piece to prepare it for painting at the craft night. It took me most of November and December, after school and on weekends, but not Sundays, to get the work done. Mom tells me that the Relief Society president, also Bishop's wife, will compensate me fairly for all the work I did. Craft night goes off great. Everyone is super pleased with the nativities and I received many compliments. The following Sunday, right near Christmas, Relief Society president came to me with a gift-wrapped package and a card, which I correctly presumed was my compensation. Inside the card, a handwritten note thanking me. Inside the wrapping paper, a giant-size Hershey bar. That was the extent of my compensation for giving up 2 months' worth of afternoons and Saturdays. That was my first real taste of Mormon cheapness. Because Mormons are expected to give things to the church for free all the time, they often start expecting that from their fellow members. When I was still a member, I was doing art. Actually, you can see some of it pictured here behind me. And the leader for girls' camp wanted to use it at girls' camp. I was very hesitant because I was selling it to make ends meet for my family. So what happened? They called me to the girls' camp committee and then hoped I would give my art for free, which I did. I was incredibly nuanced at the time and actually ended up leaving the church altogether at the end of that same year. And because I did not actually want to go to girls' camp, I made sure that my work schedule prevented me from doing so. And then on top of not being paid for my art, I wasn't even there to see the girls enjoy it. After that story, this last bit of information will seem quite fitting. Let's read a bit about consent from Emily Nagoski. Enthusiastic consent. When I want you, when I don't fear the consequences of saying yes or saying no. When saying no means missing out on something I want. Willing consent. When I care about you, though I don't desire you right now. When I'm pretty sure saying yes will have an okay result, and I think maybe that I'd regret saying no. When I believe that desire may begin after I say yes. Unwilling consent. When I fear the consequences of saying no more than I fear the consequences of saying yes. When I feel not just an absence of desire, but an absence of desire for desire. When I hope that by saying yes, you will stop bothering me, or think that if I say no, you'll only keep on trying to persuade me. Coerced consent. When you threaten me with harmful consequences if I say no. When I feel I'll be hurt if I say yes, but I'll be hurt more if I say no. When saying yes means experiencing something I actively dread. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.